Good morning. Today, I'm super excited about this topic. Do you guys ever feel like you're just losing at life? Um, I do sometimes. And I think a lot of the times we see all the pretty pictures on Instagram. We think everybody's winning and nothing is going our way. So I'm here to talk to you guys this morning, very raw, very unfiltered, very vulnerable chat about how I have failed over and over and over, how it's built resilience, how it's been some of the best education I've ever gotten, and why it's so important not to compare ourselves to the people winning on Instagram. So today, the idea came to me to start talking about this. As many of you know, I entered my first pageant, the Mrs. Texas pageant, over the weekend. And I lost big time. You guys, my only goal was to get in the top 5, and I didn't. And I don't know exactly why I thought that I would walk into a pageant, something that I have never done before, and walk out in the top 5. I just assumed that because lately I've been winning at life, I could win at this too. And there is a certain amount of like a dropping sensation you feel whenever you're on stage in front of tons of friends and family and they're calling the finalists out and you're waiting to hear your name and you don't. I bombed my question. They asked me how I'm not going to get burnt out. Well, I am burnt out. So that was a tough one to answer. I'm always burnt out. I'm resilient. I deal with burnout really well. That's not the answer anybody was looking for, but it's the truth. And I don't know how to be anything but authentic most of the time. Lots of things that went wrong, but standing there, it really got me thinking about how losing has led me to leading and how some of my biggest losses in life, some of my biggest challenges, some of the times I thought that I would not be able to pull myself out of the hole were what led me to some of my just absolute biggest wins. So let's back up. I want to talk about when I was younger, probably about 2006. I decided I wanted to move to New York City. I was going to be a big time hairstylist there, which I did move to New York City. I did work at Frederick Fekkai for a couple years, but before I could leave, I had loose ends I had to tie up at home, and one of them was I had a car and I had a car payment. I was 21 years old. My car payment was probably 400 bucks, something that now seems really trivial, but back then was a ton of money. And it was the one thing that was stopping me from just picking up my bags and going. And I kept trying to sell this car. I kept trying to find a way to get rid of it, try to get rid of this payment. I was upside down. I made a horrible deal. Here's the real loser part. It was a silver Chrysler Sebring convertible, like Michael Scott on The Office. Like I had that car. I thought it was so cool. It's another loser moment for me. Anyway, if you drive a Chrysler Sebring convertible, I'm sorry. But I eventually just left for New York. I stopped making the payment and I had the bank come and they picked up the car. Like I literally left it at my parents' farm in Kentucky. My dad called and said, "Hey, your car's being repossessed. Have you been making the payments?" And I said, "No, I haven't." And while I knew it was coming, it was really my first moment in my life where I realized, man, that's embarrassing. And this is going to wreck my credit. And why did I let this happen? But I also want to go back to that moment, and my credit's fine now. I'm an adult. I've not had a car repossessed since. I've not been financially irresponsible since. But what did impact my life was taking the leap to move to New York City. And if I would have let this one obstacle, a car that was $400 a month, keep me from going after something that was so important to me, that could have been really life-changing for me. So that's the first loss, the first time I felt like a big loser walking down the street knowing that there was a tow truck in my parents' driveway repossessing a car that I agreed to pay for. Embarrassing. I did it. It's embarrassing. Second loss, for a lot, I mean, there's been a lot, but we're gonna just go with the really big ones, the really impactful ones. Um, for those of you who know, my husband and I decided to open a franchise cycling studio. We loved cycling. I was passionate about fitness, and I thought, if you love something this much, there's no way you can fail at it. So my husband sold his business. It was a concrete curbing business. It was successful. We sold it. We dumped a ton of money and SBA loans. I think all in maybe $750,000 into building out this cycling studio. We hired our staff. I mean, we were going to do this. And we opened the studio in January of 2020. You guys know where this is going. And in March, actually March 20th of 2020, we got the news that we needed to shut our doors. The day after we closed, every single member that we had acquired over being open those first 2 months, I think all but 2 canceled their membership. So we were sitting on an empty space that we owed $9,000 a month on. We had bills, we had utilities, we had staff to pay. We had to essentially lay off all of our staff so that they could get unemployment. And it sucked. And when we came back from the shutdown, what we discovered was everybody bought Pelotons. They were doing at-home workouts. The whole exercise community had shifted. And I'm not using that as an excuse. I'm saying that what we had started with in 2019, December of 2019, was not the same as where we were in June of 2020. And we hung in there. We tried to get members. We did everything. The franchise was not equipped to handle COVID and all that entails. And they're a smaller franchise and they didn't have the resources to help us as much as they, I don't want to say should have, but as much as we needed, basically. So we hung in there for 2 years. We loved our members. We stayed open for them. We loved our instructors and our staff. But I was pumping $10,000 a month into that business just to keep it open. And my husband was working full time there because we couldn't afford to hire other staff. He had sold his business and we were terrified. And we started calling bankruptcy attorneys. We just knew the only way out. We signed a 10-year lease. We owed the SBA $300,000 and I was giving $10,000 a month just to make payroll from working in my salon. At this time, I owned one Bex & Co. And I was terrified and I started thinking, what can I do here? I have to pivot. And what I noticed was, okay, fitness studios not doing great right now, but you know what is doing great? Hair salons. People aren't giving up their hair. So I started looking for salons that were closing down. I knew that these stylists were going to want to come back and they weren't going to have anywhere to go. So I found 2 salons. That's when I found South Lamar in downtown and I bought them. And I rebranded them to a Bex & Co. And I brought in the stylists that didn't have anywhere to work once their salon closed as renters. And I started using the model that I had created in my first salon that was waitlisted to create these new salons. So we were still in it with Star Cycle. I was still struggling. I was still giving out $10,000 a month, but I was using all of the franchising information that I had learned from building Star Cycle and how to create a scalable business to open salons. So in April of 2022, I believe, maybe it was May, we closed the doors of Star Cycle. I said, no more. I was embarrassed as a business owner to open a business. I was begging my landlords not to sue me. I had to get lawyers to deal with the SBA. I still make a $1,500 a month payment every month to the SBA for that failed business. And I will be doing that likely for the next 10 to 15 years unless I pay it off in advance. And it was a big failure. And I felt like a giant loser. I laid in bed at night and I cried. I didn't want to talk about it. I could barely announce it on Instagram. All of the members, I didn't want to see them out in public, even though I loved them. I was just so embarrassed of the failure. But all of this to say, I was growing my salons. Even though I was embarrassed about that, I kept pushing forward. I kept using everything I learned to grow the salons. And now we're 7 locations in. And I used a lot of the methods I had learned from opening that business to scale Bex & Co. So when I look back, I think of it as like a very expensive master's degree in business. I am no longer embarrassed about it. In fact, I can talk about it very freely and openly. I can tell people about my experience. I can say that it failed, but I did not fail. I know that there's others out there who have felt this way, especially in the salon world. I'm not gonna I usually say, don't talk about recession. We're not in recession. Well, we are, guys. It's tough out there right now for stylists. And I know that a lot of you feel like you might be failing. You feel like you're losing clients. Clients are losing their jobs. They're coming in less frequently, and you're having a star cycle moment, which is what I call it now. You're having a moment where you're like, I can't afford to keep this going. But here's what I'm going to tell you. Look for resilience in this. Look for the opportunities to grow. Look for the opportunities to pivot, even if it's in another direction. Find ways. I talked to a stylist the other day and I said, maybe this is where we need to meet people where they are. And we've been in such a bull market for so long where we're like, raise prices, charge more, set boundaries. We might need to back off a little bit. And that's an unpopular opinion. But right now, I'm going to tell you, keep your clients, keep your clients, keep your clients, keep them coming in as often as possible. That might mean offering an in-between service, saying, hey, I know that your husband lost his job. I know that you're struggling, but I want you to feel good about yourself. Let's do a mini highlight where we just face frame you so that we can stretch you a little bit longer in between appointments. Let's do a toner. Let's do whatever we need to get you through until you get out of this hard spot. And I've been here before with clients. And what I will say is, when you give to clients, when you meet them where they are, when you offer kindness, when you recognize they're struggling, when they are winning, they will come back and make sure you are winning too. And I've had clients that have done that for me over and over again, where when they didn't have a job, I offered some kindness. I let them cancel an appointment they couldn't afford without a cancellation fee. I did mini touch-ups at a discount of the price. And later, when those clients got their jobs and they were making a ton, those are the clients that gave me 100 extra dollars after every service, or who had stuck with me until the very end when I stopped doing hair. So I just want to recognize how these losses that are very painful, very challenging, very embarrassing don't have to feel that way. I also want to point out, without these dark times, we're not going to recognize the times that feel really good. My favorite analogy is one that I made by accident. My client, Mary Berry, and well, I say client, my friend, my best friend, Mary Berry, we were doing her extensions and she's always like blonder, 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 blonder. And I'm like, Mary, if we go solid blonde, it's not going to feel that blonde. It's going to not feel that light. We have to put the dark pieces in there in order to make the light pieces lighter. And she tells me all the time that when she's having a hard time, she thinks about that you can't see the light without the dark. We can't recognize the happy, exciting moments in our life if we haven't been through the valleys, if we haven't experienced the lows, if we haven't had painful moments. So let these valleys, these difficult times, make the peaks feel even sweeter. And I also want to recognize that we're all watching Instagram and we're all watching people win every day because people love to post their wins. I love to post my wins. And when I'm losing, I have a harder time posting it. Like, it's not as fun to get on this video and say, hey, let me tell you all the ways that I'm a big loser. That's a lot less fun than going on Instagram and saying, listen, I won a pageant and I'm making tons of money and all my salons are successful and I have a successful cycling studio and everything I do works. That's just not the case, but that's what we see on Instagram because nobody wants to post, "Hey, I entered a pageant and I lost really bad and I blew the onstage question and I did not perform as good as I thought and here I am." Like that's not what the verbiage is with the photos. The photos are beautiful pictures that talk about how much fun this person has and leaves out the suffering that they experienced. So when we look at Instagram and we compare our lives, our businesses, our family, the way we look, all of those Instagram posts have a pretty filter on them. It's not real life, y'all. And I think it's so important to recognize the people who do post real life, who do talk about losses, because we're all out here comparing ourselves to each other. And comparison's the thief of joy. Whenever we look at these Instagram posts and we think that everybody's winning but us, it's a lonely space. And I will tell you, my best thought on this is that we think when we're losing, we think when our business is being challenged, when our family life is hard, where our relationships aren't working, that we're alone. And it's a lonely space to be in, to feel like my life isn't working and everybody around me is doing great. But I want to tell you that loss and failure and challenge is a universal experience. And everyone around you is experiencing some sort of challenge, some sort of loss, some sort of problem in their life, and they're working really hard to cover it up and to look like they're winning. So when you feel lonely in your losses or in your failures or perceived failures, whatever that means, we have to realize that we're not alone. Everybody around us is feeling that, and we have to just look for the light. What did we learn? What resilience did this build in us? What strength do we have now that we've been through this hard, challenging experience? And I'll tell you, the most incredible people are the ones with the biggest stories, the ones who have experienced the biggest losses, the biggest challenges. They're the ones who have turned it around and are really winning at life. So, today, I just want to use that as an intro as I talk a little bit more about where the industry is right now, as an independent stylist or as an entrepreneur in general. It doesn't even have to be an independent stylist. Anyone who has a small business right now, I kind of want to talk about business climate right now, what we're experiencing, whether or not we can call what we're in right now a recession, but how it's affecting us and how I'm seeing it affect us and what we can do aside from what I've already mentioned to survive it and thrive and use the resilience, grow the muscle of being uncomfortable and really get through on the other side whenever we get back into a peak. Um, So right now, I'm having a lot of stylists tell me that they feel like they're losing clients. They feel like they're having a harder time keeping clients in their chair. They're not sure if their pricing is what it should be. And I will tell you, we've been in a long time of saying, listen, raise your prices. You're worth it. If you have to find your ideal client, if it's not this one, it's another. But right now, if you're not at a time where your books are completely full and you're struggling for money, this might be an opportunity to reevaluate your pricing. Are you meeting market and industry standards? Are you higher than everybody else? Are you a little bit too strict with your cancellation policies and it's cost you 5 or 6 clients who were upset about paying a cancellation fee? And this is where we have to pivot. It's just like 2020, whenever I said, I would never send a client home with their own hair color. And guess what I did? I made people at home hair kits with their color and I did a video tutorial on how to apply your own color. It was a pivot that I had to make. And we're back into a place where we might need to pivot. So I want to give you a few options, a few things that you can do right now. I want to mention that Recessions are not bad for everybody. Some people actually make a lot of money during a recession. So this is a great opportunity to really up your marketing, your email campaign if you have one, your Instagram. Reach out to clients that you haven't seen in a while and invite them back in. Create maybe a new service list that are services you've always offered, but that people didn't know, like toners or face framing highlights or balayage around the face of the bowl or like a wet balayage. There's so many options, a dry cut, a bang trim, things that will keep your clients coming in frequently, will get them in your chair, but will allow you to make a little bit of money. And the most important part is let's make what we need to survive and keep our client count high. So whatever we need to do to keep our client count high. Secondly, let's reevaluate our policies. Yes, if somebody is constantly no showing, we need to charge them. If they're late canceling, we need to charge a cancellation fee. However, if a good client that you really like calls you and says, listen, my husband lost my job, I have a color appointment booked for today, and I just want to be honest, I can't afford it. That's a time I would either waive the reschedule fee and I would say, let's reschedule for when you know you've got a paycheck coming in. Or I would say, listen, I know that you can't afford your full appointment, but maybe we could just give you a few touch up highlights around the face and a trim, and it's going to cost half the price and it's going to take half the time. Is that something you still want to come in for? And a lot of times they're going to say yes. So reevaluate your policies in that way. And even if they say, no, I can't afford anything, say, okay, well, when can we reschedule for? And if we do reschedule, I will not charge you a cancellation fee today. And they'll say, oh, great. Well, actually, I think things are going to pick up in about 2 weeks. Can I get in 2 weeks? Absolutely. I totally understand. Thank you so much for sharing this personal information with me. Let's get you in 2 weeks. Absolutely. We're going to make you look fabulous. And I'm so sorry that you're going through this. That's how I would pivot and handle it. I would not say, listen, my policy is that I have to charge a reschedule fee. So now I'm going to charge you 50%. So you're still going to have to pay. That is a good way to lose a client who's already struggling, who maybe you don't want to lose. So let's reevaluate our policies. Let's also reevaluate all of our own expenses. Let's look at product costs. Let's see where we can cut down expenses so that we still have a good margin on our services, even though we're not raising our prices right now. Maybe sit still in your price raising. Maybe we don't raise for 6 months if you're usually raising quarterly. Maybe we don't raise for a year if you're raising every 6 months. And I know that this might not be popular opinion and this might not be the information you want to hear, but right now, if you are struggling, if you feel like you're losing clients, if your book is hurting, it is time to pivot. And it's time to kind of pull yourself out of this place of fear and start being proactive. This is where we are going to start advertising like we've never advertised. We're going to go to local businesses. We're going to introduce ourselves. We're going to be active on Instagram. We're going to offer services that we've not offered before. We're going to really push to get new clients in our chair. And the best part about this is if you can hang in there, if you can kind of survive what feels like a little bit of a storm, I promise you that we're going to come out ahead on this and you're going to be winning. And I think that this little downturn that we might be experiencing in the economy or the inflation that I think that it's going to turn around. It always turns around. I think there's several factors, high level interest rates, things that you don't think about on a day-to-day basis, but now is starting to really affect us. I think that those things are going to turn around a little bit because they just have to. We can't stay at a low. We always have a high after a low. So hang in there. Try to not lose faith and remember that you're not in it alone. I still struggle constantly with what feels like failure, like when I leave or when I have a renter leave and I feel like they have a valid reason why they left, or whenever, finances are low in the salons and I'm not making as much as I feel like I should be. These are all things that I experience on a monthly basis. And as an entrepreneur and, a primary breadwinner in my family, it's really scary and it comes with a lot of fear. So my point in saying this is that things aren't always how they appear, even in my life. There are a lot of people struggling right now. There are a lot of people who feel like they're losing right now. And I just want you to know that these are the opportunities that you will look back on someday and you will be very, very thankful for. These are opportunities for growth. These are times to really see how resilient you are, and in the long run to really grow your business. Those of us that hang in there in the hard times are going to be the ones that are winning when this thing's all over. So that's our glam chat today. I know that it's a little shorter than usual. I only have so much of talking about hard things that I can do. So I appreciate you guys joining in. And I want you to remember that we have a community, and that the more we share our vulnerable side, the more we share our losses, even on Instagram, even in public, the more it's going to allow others to be open and vulnerable and honest about things they're going through too. So don't be scared to occasionally say, listen, I'm a loser. Here's what I did. This is kind of embarrassing and I want to laugh about it now. Like my horrible pageant interview question flop. It happens, guys. So thank you for joining into Glam Chats today. I'm really excited to be able to share these vulnerable parts of my life with you as well. And we're always here. We'll be here next Monday at 10 a.m. with a new topic. If you guys have a topic you would like to talk about, I am always super open to taking suggestions. You can put them in the Glam Chats Facebook page. You can message me on Instagram, also known as Bex, on the YouTube channel. I'm always excited to hear what you guys are struggling with and what I might know that can help you out. So you guys have a great Monday, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.